Alright, so here we are, the long-awaited layout update number 3. So it's been a while since we did the last update. Got tied up with school and work, so I haven't been able to work on the layout much. However, since summer started, I've been able to add a little bit more to it. So obviously the first thing you notice is we now have a road. This is made out of just joint compound, an old bucket we had lying around. I got the idea from model train stuff. So what I ended up doing was, first of all, I traced out a road. I don't know if you can see the faint blue line across there as the road. I then went on ahead and took joint compound. There's the bucket right down there. Took a big spreader and just kind of molded it onto there, kind of created a rough shape. Let it dry out for a few days. That was something interesting because it's older compound and it just kept it. I let it set for probably 2 or 3 days and it was still just a little moist. So what I ended up doing was, where's the fan around here? Somewhere around up back there, the little fan moving back and forth. I ended up putting that on the other side of the layout just so it would dry off, and overnight it just dried up quickly. So that was nice. One problem I ran into while paving the road was I kind of mixed up old, dried up joint compound in with the new stuff. So it created kind of like this chunky peanut butter texture to it. So there was all these little chunks I had to take out. And as a result, I had to go back and take out all those big chunks, which is fine when you take a step back, when you take a look at it closer for something like there. I don't know if you can see that. It's a little dent in the road. There were just dozens of little dents across the road. So what I ended up having to do was come back with more joint compound, kind of do pavement work almost across the road, and just kind of pave over the mistakes, let it dry, same method as with the fan, and then just let it keep going. And I probably did that 4 or 5 times, and I'm probably going to do it one more time, just to fix that one divot I showed you. But finally, it's looking to be good. When I take the masking tape off, after I'm done putting down the grass, which that's a whole nother story I'll get to in a second, I'll probably take some more joint compound and just kind of smooth it up against the crossing there so it doesn't create like this hump. So it'll actually look like a real model railroad. One boo-boo I did make while making the road was under here I drilled a hole so the wire from the controller would go into the terminal for the track. Unfortunately, I forgot about the hole and I kind of just paved over it. So I need to go back through there, drill a hole, create a slot for the wire, and pave that back over when it's time to put the controller in. So that's a big fiasco. So I might hold off on painting that. Speaking of the road, I'll put a link in the description on the video model train stuff did, how to build your own road. Going off on that, the next big thing we did was we added texture to the cut here. So this is just joint compound again. What I ended up doing was I didn't have to be as smooth as the road. So what I ended up doing, I just ended up slapping it across here, just making it look like a rock cut and kind of make it look like it's been eroded over a few decades, like 50 years or so. I'll include a time lapse of me actually putting down the joint compound right now. So yeah, that's how I did the cut in the, I did the texture for the cut and the layout. Looking over the layout, I'm probably just thinking about what the next step is. I want to go back and kind of address some issues. Like in the time I wasn't working on layout, we stored it right next to our MG Midget right there, and it kind of got banged up, as you can see, kind of like on this little hill right here. So I need to come back here with some liquid nails, just kind of pave over that and just sand it down and hope nobody notices. I also want to come back through here and maybe trim back the rock texture a little bit so it looks a little more natural instead of just like I put plaster down on it. So, and eventually I'll take some paint and paint over the texture to make it look natural, maybe add some weathering to it. Thought about just straight up pencil lead or actual weathering detail. Moving on to the grass. I ordered grass back in late May and it just arrived a few days ago. So, way to go for the postal service. Really backed up these days. The video I'm following online, I think it's my model railroader, and that video is a few years old now. They used a powder for their grass, and I couldn't find the powder on Amazon, so I ended up having to buy blindly this bag of stuff off Amazon. And it looks good, however, it's not a powder, it's actual like strands of grass. I don't know if you can see it. I'll open up a bag here. So this is the kind of stuff I'm using. As you kind of see, it's very strainy. Just actual blades of grass. I'm just thinking about, okay, how am I going to make this work now? So I need to look into that. If I can make it work, great. If not, I'll probably end up sending it or returning it to Amazon, just trying to find something else to use. I want to get this thing done by the end of the summer because I don't want it sitting around down here in the workshop where it's going to get dinged up more by all the other projects. So like way back there, I got a lawnmower generator I'm working on. But yeah, so that's it for the layout right now. I did put one of my bigger freight cars on the track and just kind of ran it back and forward to the cut, make sure it's still fit, and it does. I just got to be careful because a few times I have run it through there, it's hit kind of like the side of it. I don't want to sand it back too far and reveal A, the foam, or B, make it look unnatural. So what I'm really pleased out is the legs, keeping with the layout. As you can kind of see, they're kind of rounded on the end, so that's kind of designed so only one person can just set it up as opposed to two. So you lift one end up, put the legs in, leave it like that, lift the other end up, rotate on this end, you can put the legs in like that. Makes it easy, and I wanted to store it under my bed, and so that's the plan. So moving on to future plans for the layout. I did a few things. So I don't know if I showed this in the previous update, but I put down ballast on a test piece of track, and it was fine, but it was black ballast, and I'm like, well, real ballast isn't black, it's more of a grayish color. And so what I ended up doing was I took this piece of test track, covered over the rails, covered over the sides, and left the ballast bank exposed. And I just took a can of I think it's Gunship Gray spray paint by Krylon or Rust-Oleum, and just kind of painted it. And it worked good. I mean, you can kind of see the chunk of paint missing there. But yeah, I got to be careful about that. I'm just thinking about, how often I'm going to be moving this back and forth under my bed, and I'm just thinking, well, is it going to get dirty? I might hold off on putting ballast on the track, and that'll be maybe later on down the line, pun not intended. One thing that did grind my gears, though, was that, I masked off the track, and it wasn't gray, it was still black. So what I ended up doing was I took that same spray paint, sprayed it into a little cup, and then took a brush and kind of brushed in the tracks there, and brushed in the ballast. And obviously that kind of got the ties messed up, so I just went over it with a Sharpie. It looks okay on camera. When you look closely at it, it's kind of I might need to go back with a fine tip Sharpie and get closer to the rail there for it. So that's that for the track. Again, I'm just thinking about the future here, because that's old Bachmann black snap track underneath there. That's not the new gray stuff. I've had that track since, oh goodness, 10 years now, so it's been a while. And the last thing I did was I built a new roof for part of the oil refinery. If you remember in the previous update, I kind of had the oil refinery set up on the far side of the table there, and the one building didn't have a roof on it. Well, long story short, I kind of screwed that roof up when I was building the building, and so I'm just like, great. So I ended up getting this plastic by Evergreen Scale Models, just polystyrene sheets, like $5 at Hobby Lobby, and they come in like a pack of 2 or 3. So what I did is I just took a small chunk of them, cut the dimensions down so it would kind of look scale across the roof, made the ridges for it, and from back here it looks okay, but don't look too close because the ridges are very much off kilter, and that's just because how thin I cut them, and they just didn't like that. When you cut them so thin, they just kind of curl up. I'm not sure why they do that, maybe just because of the friction caused by that and the heat. So, and then I painted it with Gunship Gray and called it good. So So future plans. Right now, just getting that the building's done. Yeah. Again, just putting down the grass, painting the road and the cut, and putting in some trees. I do have trees with me. I'm gonna wait to put those in until the layout is pretty much done. The buildings and the trees will most likely be permanently fixed in, except for the oil refinery towers back there by the siding. Those will probably be removable just because of how tall they are. I'm going to avoid putting trees on top of the hills, again, for clearance underneath my bed. And then the controller will go right there, just so it's out of the way. All right, and there we are. See you in the next update.